All right, so today we're going deep on a story that I think a lot of people know, but maybe not this particular part of it. It's a story about King Saul and David.
Oh, yeah, David and Goliath.
Right, exactly. But this part of their story, I think, is even more intense. It
Yeah.
really gets into this, like, psychology of power and how we react when we feel threatened.
Yeah.
So Saul is the king, right? And he's totally convinced that David is this rival who's going to take his throne.
Mm-hmm.
And he becomes obsessed with basically taking David out.
Right. Saul's really threatened.
Yeah, so David is literally running for his life at this point.
Classic underdog.
Yeah, and so we're going to jump into this one really tense scene where Saul goes into a cave and he has no idea that David and his men are hiding inside.
Whoa.
Yeah, so think about that for a second.
Right.
You're David, you've been unjustly pursued by this like powerful king,
Right.
and now all of a sudden he's right there.
So right there in your grasp.
Yeah, and so your men are like, dude, this is it.
This is divine providence. Take him out.
Yes, like God has delivered him into our hands.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't even imagine like the pressure.
It's such a moral dilemma.
Oh, huge moral dilemma. But this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
David chooses not to kill Saul.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's a decision that goes against like every instinct for self-preservation.
Yeah.
And he says that he won't harm the Lord's anointed.
Hmm. Interesting.
And that's really important because it shows just how much David respects authority.
Yeah. Even when that authority is clearly being misused in this case.
Exactly. And he's basically saying, you know what? I trust God to handle this.
Right.
I'm not going to take matters into my own hands.
Yeah, but he doesn't just like sneak away either.
No, he doesn't. He cuts off a piece of Saul's robe.
Really?
Yeah. And so this seemingly like small act
Yeah.
is actually really
I
significant.
can imagine.
It's like a powerful way of showing restraint, right?
Yeah.
Because he could have killed him,
Oh, absolutely.
but he chose not to.
Yeah.
And it's also a clever way to be like, hey, look, I had you at my mercy,
Mm-hmm.
and this sets the stage for this confrontation. That is going to get very intense.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. Okay, so now David, he goes outside the cave
Mm-hmm.
and he calls out to Saul. And he's holding up that piece of cloth, the robe, as proof of what he could have done.
Oh, man.
Can you imagine that?
I would be terrified.
Oh, totally. And David, he just pours out his heart to Saul. He's pleading with him, saying, like, I've been nothing but loyal to you.
Yeah.
And explaining how, he's done nothing wrong. But Saul's just been hunting him down.
Right.
It's like, it takes so much courage to stand up to a king like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially when he's the one who's been hunting you.
Exactly. But what I find so interesting is that David doesn't just appeal to Saul's, sense of fairness or logic or whatever.
Mhm.
He appeals to something higher. He says, may the Lord judge between you and me.
Wow.
He's putting his trust in God, like completely.
That's a powerful statement.
It is. It's like he's saying, I'm not going to fight you with your weapons.
Right.
I'm going to fight you with my integrity and my trust in God.
Really puts him in a different category.
Totally. And it's such a radical approach, especially in that culture where, strength and power were everything.
Yeah, for sure.
And the crazy thing is, it actually works.
What?
Saul is totally undone, like completely. He starts weeping. He's admitting he was wrong.
Oh.
Yeah. And he even acknowledges that, hey, David's going to be king one day.
Really?
It's like, David's mercy just cracked open Saul's heart.
That's wild.
It's a moment of complete transformation. We see this incredible power of mercy, like disarm someone,
Yeah.
just break through all the layers of pride and anger, and it opens up this space for like real remorse.
And maybe even reconciliation.
Yeah, maybe. And then Saul, he does something even more surprising.
Oh, what's that?
He begs David to swear that he won't, wipe out his family, his descendants. He wants to break the cycle of revenge. I know. And this just highlights like the ripple effect of mercy.
Mm.
It's not just about sparing someone in that one moment.
Right.
It's about creating lasting peace
Mm-hmm.
and healing, the wounds of the past.
Building a better future.
Exactly.
So we have this, incredibly dramatic story that happened thousands of years ago. But what does it mean for us today? I mean, we're not exactly wandering around in caves hiding from kings.
Right, exactly. So how does this apply to us? Yeah, I mean, it's a great blueprint, right? Like when we're dealing with conflict,
Mm-hmm.
choose mercy over revenge.
Mm.
Trust in, something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
Act with integrity. But honestly, sometimes that feels impossible,
Oh, yeah. Right.
especially like in the heat of the moment.
Totally. Like our natural instinct is to fight back, right?
Yeah.
Protect ourselves, make sure we don't get taken advantage of. But David's story shows us this other way.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of courage, but I think it ultimately leads to a much, much better outcome.
So how do we like actually put this into practice? It's one thing to talk about it, but how do we like actually live this out when we're dealing with, a difficult boss
Right.
or a family feud or just feeling totally betrayed by someone?
Yeah, it's tough. I think it starts with like recognizing those moments when we're tempted to just like react immediately, lash out, want to get even.
Yeah.
Like, someone cuts us off in traffic or a coworker takes credit for our work.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the times we need to like pause, take a breath, and ask ourselves, what would David do?
It's like a mantra.
Yeah.
A way to like interrupt that automatic reaction.
Exactly.
The anger, the resentment.
And in that pause, we can start to apply these principles. Choose mercy even when it feels totally undeserved.
Yeah.
Remind ourselves that, there's a bigger picture, that we don't have to control everything and act with integrity, even when other people aren't.
So it's not about being passive or letting people walk all over us, but it's about choosing a different path.
Yeah.
A path that leads to more peace.
Yeah, more peace within ourselves, more peace in our relationships.
And I think what's so inspiring about this story is that it shows us that like forgiveness and reconciliation, those are always possibilities. It might not happen overnight and it might not be easy, but it's possible.
And that's really the takeaway. Even in the face of, huge injustice, even when we've been really hurt, there's always hope. There's always a chance to choose a different path. A path of mercy, a path of peace.
So as you go about your day, as you encounter those little conflicts, maybe someone's rude to you in line at the coffee shop or whatever, remember this story. Remember David and Saul. Remember the power of mercy. And remember that even in those really dark moments, there's always a glimmer of light. There's always a path towards healing and hope.